Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News, and we are the news division of United Network. We're also part of CARE, which stands for the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. And our mission here at UNN is to bring you the real news. And we put out a lot of content throughout the week. That includes in-depth news stories, and the team and I work on those stories for you guys. We have local stories told through the eyes of our field messengers. We talk about the restoration of our planet and how we're creating the new Earth together with you guys. Of course, this is a team effort. And we also have updates from the Global Intelligence Agency. We're really fortunate to have Kim Gogan, who can give us an honest assessment of what is actually going on and sometimes make sense of those weird news headlines that you see in mainstream media that you know are just a little bit off. You're like, or maybe even a lot off because they're not telling us the truth. Well, we try to break all that information down for you. If you want more information about who we are and what we do, I encourage you guys to visit our website at unitednetwork.earth. What you're listening to right here, if you're brand new, welcome. This podcast is all about sharing stories that we've released over the last week. I call it a week in review podcast. It's a great way to catch up on stories you may have missed, or if you want to share UNN and some of the things that we're discussing, if you want to share it with other people, this is a great way to do that. You can just send them this link. And that's because when we put out our information for the first week, it is only available to our members. And then it goes out on YouTube and Rumble. So that's another way that you guys can find us. Of course, we can't guarantee that the information stays up there because social media has a mind of its own on what you should and should not know. And we can't do anything about that. So if you want instant access to everything we put out there, I would encourage you guys go to our website and learn how you can become a member. But with anything, we always encourage you guys to think critically, to ask your own questions. And when you start putting some of these puzzle pieces together, and trust me, that's exactly what it is. You know those puzzle pieces, it's like 10,000 pieces, and you're like, there's no way I'm ever going to figure this thing out. Yeah, that's life here on Earth. And we all have, little pieces of the puzzle. We're trying to put it together, and it can take an eternity, it feels like. But when we stand strong with each other and we help each other out, then things become much easier, right? So we encourage you guys, when you start connecting those pieces, share what you know with other people. And if they're receptive, that's great. And if they're not, don't push it, right? Everybody's on their own path and their own journey. I think we all have those experiences where we've tried to share things with people and they weren't as receptive as we would have liked. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. They will discover things in their own time. And you really do have eternity because time isn't really a real thing. We're experiencing time here in the third dimension, but most other beings do not experience time like us. And so you really do have forever to figure this out. So no rush, I guess, right? All right, any announcements? Kim did make an announcement on behalf of the UNN team this week. So regarding our field messengers, our team has been working really hard in the background for developing what we're calling the Field Messenger app. And this really is a way to simplify how our field messengers send us their reports. And we say this a lot, but field messengers are essential to what we're doing here at UNN. We really do believe that we have to be sharing our own stories of what's going on in our communities. That's how we avoid these crazy narratives that they're trying to feed us. If we are just talking to each other and sharing content, which is super easy to do nowadays, then we should be able to figure this out, right? It's all about communication. So we want to make this as simple as possible. So our Field Messenger app has been released on Google, I believe it is, not yet on Apple. Apple, surprise, surprise, there's a lot of hurdles to jump through. and their timeline is a little bit different than ours. And usually you can get things passed through Google faster. And that's exactly what happened here. So there is more information on our Telegram chat for field messengers if you guys want to check that out. I also want to encourage you guys, if you're thinking about becoming a field messenger, to attend our meetings. So we have meetings on my time. It's every Sunday at 3 p.m. I'm on Pacific time in the U.S. So you'll have to kind of do the conversion there. But it's an hour-long period of time where we get to connect with the field messengers and see what's going on in their communities and see if there's collaboration between what we're doing on the news side of stuff and what our field messengers are doing. And then also possibly the field messengers collaborating together, right? That's really the name of the game, is sharing and growing together. So I would encourage you guys to visit and hang out with us for a little bit. Even if you don't talk, that's okay. You can be in the background. You don't even have to turn on your camera if you don't want to. But again, this is what our news is all about, is you guys sharing what's going on in your communities. And we believe that's where we're going, where the news is really going to be that just for specific places in the world. And you won't have necessarily people, like me that are telling you, everything that's going on. You'll be able to figure out this stuff on your own and then report on it and share it with other people. And we'll just be the people in the background that are helping to put your stories together, which, by the way, we do have an incredible production team that, if you decide to become a field messenger, can take any content that you create, whether that's on camera, photos, voiceovers that you do, you can just send it to us and we'll actually put the story together. So don't worry about having, to be this incredible editor. That's not needed. And we love doing it, and it's a lot of fun for our team, and we just really appreciate all of you guys. So let's get to it. Here are the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. So kicking things off again with our field messengers. I feel like I'm saying field messengers a lot right now, but they deserve a lot of our support because, again, they are really changing the face of news, and it's really exciting to be part of this. So let's just get to the stories. Peter out of Australia talks about how in his area there was a local lake. Okay. And it was once very murky, but it is now beautiful. They have completely transformed this lake. It is clean. It is thriving. And so Peter apparently is very inquisitive and kind of did some investigative work as to what happened here. How did this turnaround take place? And he found out by talking to some of the people involved that there was a very natural way for this lake to fix the problem, to actually reduce the algae and the plankton in the area. It uses sunlight. It doesn't harm any other organic life. So he was just sharing that this kind of restoration really is possible. And it's really kind of fun to know that even locally now in our own communities, this kind of stuff can happen. I know a lot of us are thinking about the bigger picture and restoring the whole planet, and that's great, but we can start doing these things now, right? You may have heard something weird in the background, you guys. I'm in San Diego, California, and we are going through this crazy weather pattern right now where it is literally raining for like a week straight. We're all like outside checking our drains and stuff. So if you hear something that just sounds like rain, but just for a little bit of time, I don't really know what it's doing out there, but I know in the room that I'm in, I can hear it really well. I can hear it in the microphone. So just wanted to let you know, if you hear some weird stuff in the background, it's this crazy San Diego weather. And we don't usually get a lot of rain, so the people here are kind of freaking out. Okay, moving on. Our second story is from Jerry in the Philippines, and he's talking about some earthquake damage, but he did it in a very different way, and I actually really love this. So he has a friend that is in the Philippines, because Jerry is not in the Philippines, but they had a 5.3 magnitude earthquake, and it really shook the area. And so Jerry partnered with this person. It was like Jerry kind of introed the story, but this was really the story of this woman. Her name is Christine, and I believe it was her aunt's house she was showing us. But she was showing us the damage from the earthquake, and there were lots of cracks, and I'm sure things weren't working properly, and they apparently have no government support in this. Surprise, surprise. But I just love the way this field messenger report was done, because our field messengers here, we kind of know the drill, right? It's like report on what's going on in your community, and then we help you put the story together and we put it out there on the news. But another way you can do this is if you know people in other areas where stuff is going on, you can say, hey, can you just grab some footage for us? And then whether it's the news team kind of puts it together or a field messenger takes that and kind of goes back and forth with the person to tell the story, it's just a beautiful way to still get that information out to the public where, for whatever reason, perhaps she couldn't do it directly, right? So I love the story. It was a great show of collaboration. All right, Lawrence is in New Mexico, and he's done a few reports now from the Tesla conference there. It is the 2025 Tesla Technology Conference, and it took place in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And he spent, I think, 5 days there. And so, like I said, there's multiple reports coming out, but this was one where it just kind of showcased or provided an overview of this conference. Lawrence said one of his takeaways really was that everyone was just sharing, which may sound kind of simple, but in a world where everything is so hush-hush and there's so much competition and competing ideas and copyright and all this craziness, it's just refreshing for people just to freely share information about things that could help them, technology that can help them without any kind of strings attached to that. I think that'd be a great conference to attend someday, and it sounded like Lawrence had a really good time. All right, Ocean M from the UK takes us to and introduces us to a concept. I don't know, maybe you could call it an event. It's called the Planetary Cities of Light, and these are places in the world where people come together. I think they're mainly star seeds, light workers, whatever you want to call them, but the intention is to bring more light onto this planet. And one of the ways they do this is they will select certain places, and I'm sure that's very methodical, right, as far as dispersing the light throughout the planet. And there's crystals that are placed in the area. If you've never done a deep dive on crystals, it's very interesting. So I grew up in the church thinking that anything associated with crystals was witchcraft. And that's not the case, but you still have to be very careful because crystals can hold energy. And if you don't really know what energy the crystal is holding, you just gotta, be careful with that kind of stuff. But when light workers are doing this and, they're trying to bring more light into the planet, it makes a lot of sense to do this. So they place these crystals throughout the area, and then these people work to keep the energy within that space, to really raise the energy and to bring more 5D light into the area and really have it radiate out. It's not just about keeping it there, but really making that the home for it. And one of the things, because Ocean was interviewing this lady that was part of all of it, and she said that there's locations not just on land, but in different areas of the ocean and other bodies of water. And I thought that was really fascinating too. So this is definitely a collaborative effort. I think she said there were over 100 locations, probably a lot more now since the report has been done, because I think this is a report that was actually done a while ago. We ran it before, and I think we just ran it again. So just a beautiful concept, right? We're all kind of doing our part here, all doing things in different ways, but working together at the same time, right, to make this world a better place. Kazui from Japan takes us to a very interesting, it's kind of part ceremony. They call it a festival, but this takes place in Japan. It is one of the 3 largest festivals, and it's called Gion Matsuri. And it's really based in, it's kind of like a ritual, but it's also a celebration. People are expressing their faith. They are giving thanks. There are prayers to various gods. ancestors, spirits. And she says a lot of people actually come to this. I guess less this year than in previous years due to some weather issues. But I think she said 580,000 people came to see this event in Japan this last time that they had it. And this tradition is really old. She said more than 1,150 years old. All right, Monica from Romania, she is always telling us about different buildings and structures and really cool things that are going on in Romania. And she recently found out that the Museum of History and Archaeology in Romania has fallen under some bad times, okay? So this building really, really needs repaired. And she was telling us about some of the challenges with that. It is considered a historic landmark, but she says rehabilitation is very slow. When you get into grants and things like that, I mean, surprise, surprise, our governments aren't that fast in approving stuff and money coming, all that kind of stuff, especially now because they really have no money. So it's just a very complicated process. In fact, this building right now, they're just waiting for a court decision. It's literally crumbling and we're waiting for a court or judge to make some sort of decision regarding this building and what's going to be done with it. It seems so silly, doesn't it? It's like, yeah, why can't we just do something with it? Why do we, all these complicated procedures? And hopefully that's something that we can fix moving forward. All right, Rick out of Kenya. He's not from Kenya, but he took this incredible trip and actually DM'd me about it. I think it was last week because I mentioned he had another story that ran last week. And man, this footage that he was able to get, he's just hanging out with like the coolest animals in the world, just like it is no big thing. And I just think that that's so cool. So he sent me some information about the tour and because I would love to do something like this. It just looks fantastic. And so he did a little bit more explaining in this story of what it's like to go on an African safari and that it really is for everyone. And I think that that's an important point to make because when we think about these safaris where you're like literally staying amongst the animals in various ways, we think you have to have like buku bucks, like a lot of money, right, in order to do it. And he was breaking down that stereotype and said, no, not really. I mean, they have different levels. So if you really want to go all out, you can, but you can have this kind of experience. And I really believe it would probably be life-changing to go on a true safari like this. And it's all deeply immersive. And you're just out there with nature and wildlife. And for some people, that might scare them. For me, that just gets me so excited. So again, very jealous and also excited that Rick was able to take this trip and to show us some of the beautiful animals that he was able to connect with. All right, Amy out of New Jersey. This was an interesting interview she did because she talked with an auto parts dealer. His name was Ron, and I guess he's known as the Prince of Parts, right? So she wanted to ask him more about how things over the years have really impacted him. They talked a little bit about COVID and how that slowed things down. They talked about the recent tariffs from Trump. They actually talked about tariffs the first term of Trump's, and then also how the current tariffs are impacting people. And, as you can imagine, it's not good. It's hard to get parts. The prices are through the roof. He said brake parts have risen dramatically, which is kind of important. It's important to have brakes on your car. So he also said more people are fixing older cars as opposed to getting new cars, which makes sense because, again, you can only afford what you can afford, So it's just a really interesting look from someone who's in the industry, just a real honest interview about the state of the auto industry. All right, Susan out of New Zealand takes us back and talks about the bees. Now we know honeybees are vital to our ecosystem, right? And this is worldwide. But in New Zealand, they have had some extreme weather. and some issues in declining export sales. And this has really hit specifically the Manuka honey industry really hard. And you can do some research on that. Manuka honey is amazing. And so she talks with an organic beekeeper whose business is coming to an end after 20 years, more than maybe even more than 20 years, he said. And again, this is weather related. So it's like the humidity gets too high, or perhaps there's too much rain. All of this impacts the quality of the honey. And it is a sad story because people in New Zealand really haven't had a chance to get local honey for a long time now because of these impacts. And the truth is, if these beekeepers can't take care of the bees will start to die off. Hopefully not all of them. That would be a nightmare. But even having less bees means less pollination. And that just affects everything. You know, bees, again, are just so critical to our ecosystem. So kind of a sad story, but it's important that we recognize what's going on so we can do our best to help mitigate situations like this. So here are some of the in-depth stories that the team and I have been working on for you guys this week. We are going to kick things off by talking about toxic landfill fires. Now, I know no one likes to talk about landfills, right? They may be out of sight, but their impact is anything but hidden. Even modern sites leak toxic liquids called leachate into the soil and water, while gases like methane and hydrogen sulfide pollute the air and harm nearby residents, often low-income communities and communities of color. Landfill fires, like those at California's Chiquita Canyon site and London's Launders Lane, release dangerous smoke and chemicals, putting people and ecosystems at risk and driving up massive cleanup costs. Plants, animals, and entire food chains are exposed to long-lasting toxins.
In the northwest corner of Los Angeles County, one of America's largest landfills has been overheating to dangerous levels, and the neighbors are getting sick.
There have been reports of headaches, nausea, and a cluster of new cancer cases.
In 2022, buried pockets of waste at Chiquita Canyon landfill started climbing to broiling temperatures well above safety standards, according to a state assessment. Since then, officials say, the hot temperatures have consumed about 90 acres of the landfill, spewing out strong odors and harmful gases, including benzene and carbon monoxide. Residents say they're having heart problems, nosebleeds, hand tremors, and even cancer.
The message is clear. Without stronger oversight, safer waste management, and better regulation, the trash we bury keeps coming back as a health and environmental threat. Morocco's public healthcare system is overwhelmed and underfunded, leaving overcrowded hospitals, limited supplies, and too few doctors, especially in rural areas where a single physician may serve thousands of people.
It's overcrowded. People are lying outside the door waiting and sleeping, and all kinds of illnesses are rampant. You go there for treatment, but you return with a new illness. There aren't enough medical equipment and too few hospitals, and even a hospital that looks nice on the outside is never good in the inside.
With the government spending only 6 to 7% of its budget on healthcare, hundreds of doctors leave the country each year, creating a severe staffing shortage and widening the gap between public and private care. Corruption makes the situation worse as patients pay unofficial fees and public doctors prioritize private clinics, leading to long waits and preventable deaths. Growing frustration has fueled protests from young citizens and medical workers demanding real reform. Although the government has announced a national healthcare overhaul, on-the-ground progress remains slow and millions continue to wait for reliable, accessible medical care. Tesla, the car company, and its CEO, Elon Musk, are under growing scrutiny for years of bold claims about self-driving technology that critics say doesn't match reality. While Musk has promoted autopilot and full self-driving as steps toward fully autonomous cars, Tesla vehicles are still only level 2, which requires drivers to stay alert and be ready to take control of the vehicle. Lawsuits in the U.S. and Australia accuse the company of exaggerating its capabilities, with a jury recently awarding $243 million in a fatal autopilot crash case, and California regulators investigating possible misleading marketing.
I think that the scale and the breadth of the litigation that's on foot internationally demonstrates that there's a serious problem with Tesla's vehicles. Well, since commencing the proceedings, we've had thousands of Australians register their interest in participating as group members. Drivers have reported feeling completely terrified when their vehicles have braked suddenly, and it has led in some cases to collisions. We've had many reports of people who've registered for this class action telling us that they've been driving with their hands on the vehicle, fully alert, and these issues have occurred nonetheless.
Legal pressure is mounting at a time when global EV sales are down and the company's stock has taken a hit, putting its reputation and future promises to the test. Kenya's direct cash transfer programs give money straight to households to cover basics or invest in their futures. And research shows they can improve lives in powerful ways. Government initiatives like the Hunger Safety Net program and Inua Jamii provide regular payments, while nonprofits such as Give Directly offer no-strings cash support that has boosted business revenue, education access, and household stability.
Business revenues were up 65%. Families saved more and ate more. Kids were doing better in school. There was less alcoholism, depression, domestic violence, and inequality between families. And these impacts weren't unique to Aenyo. Since this study, direct cash giving has become one of the most researched poverty interventions, and it's consistently shown impacts that often exceed traditional aid programs.
When funds go directly to women, for example, the impact is even stronger, leading to higher savings, better nutrition, reduced infant mortality, and greater confidence and independence. Families can keep kids in school, avoid high-interest debt, and build small businesses that create long-term security. Kenya's experience shows that when people have control over their own money, cash assistance can strengthen communities, expand opportunities, and support lasting change. E-scooters have surged in popularity across Europe and beyond for their convenience and eco-friendly appeal. But rising safety and urban management concerns are prompting stricter rules and outright bans. Rental scooters from companies like Voix, Tier, and Lime have caused more accidents, collisions, including collisions with pedestrians, and sidewalk clutter, while inconsistent enforcement of helmet and parking rules leaves streets chaotic.
And during one weekend, the city police discovered almost 1,000 misdemeanors or breaking violations of certain rules. And now, let's be fair. If you're a tourist in Prague and you rent one of these, the chances of you violating some rule are very, very high. I mean, it's not only one-way streets everywhere, the fact that you cannot ride on the sidewalk, the fact that cobblestone is everywhere, the fact that there's traffic signs you most likely do not understand because you're from another part of the world. You cannot ride in two people on the scooter, which is most cases we saw. And if you're under 18, you must wear a helmet. Good luck following all these rules.
Cities such as Prague, Paris, Madrid, and Finnish municipalities have introduced bans or licensing requirements to curb injuries. And similar safety debates are emerging in the U.S. and Australian cities. While e-scooters offer a greener, flexible transport option, their rapid growth highlights the need for smarter regulations, better infrastructure, and responsible riding to make them safe for everyone. The blue economy, have you heard of this before? It focuses on using oceans and waterways to generate food, energy, jobs, and innovation while protecting marine ecosystems. But rapid industrial growth and blue acceleration are putting this balance at risk.
From fishing and tourism to renewable energy and biotechnology, millions of people rely on the sea to make a living. But even clean solutions come with their own set of challenges. Take offshore wind energy. Yes, it generates some of the cleanest electricity on the planet. But building these massive turbines, not so great. Environmental groups call out the disruptive noise generated during construction, which can harm marine life. And wind energy isn't the only sector walking a tightrope. Ocean tourism is adopting more sustainable practices, but some level of environmental damage remains inevitable. And hydrogen-powered ships could revolutionize transport, but most hydrogen is still produced using fossil fuels like gas, coal, and oil. Only about 1% comes from renewable energy.
Traditional and emerging industries, from fishing and tourism to offshore wind and seabed mining, some of that threatens marine life and coastal communities, as seen in Spain's Costa Brava, where fish catches and fishing boats have dropped 60%, while cruise traffic has skyrocketed. Similar pressures affect Indonesia, where coastal livelihoods and ecosystems face strain from aquaculture and offshore energy. With the blue economy projected to double by 2030, experts stress sustainable growth must prioritize ecosystems, cultural heritage, and local communities to ensure oceans remain healthy and resilient rather than exploited for short-term profit. A global black market for rare insects is quietly booming, driven by collectors, breeders, and hobbyists willing to pay high prices for exotic species. Smugglers exploit the small size and high value of insects, moving them across borders in suitcases, test tubes, or mail packages, often mislabeling wild-caught specimens as captive bred. This trade threatens ecosystems, disrupting pollination, nutrient recycling, and soil health, while also risking invasive species outbreaks that can damage crops and cost billions.
2 Belgian teenagers were sentenced in Kenya in a bizarre ant smuggling business. You see, the Kenyan court has ruled in favor of the giant queens after 4 men, including the 2 teenagers, were found guilty of antagonizing and attempting to kidnap 5,000 live queen ants out of Africa. And this anticipated tiny victory cast a ray of hope in underground ant communities across the continent.
Scientists and regulators warn that stronger oversight, DNA tracking, and cooperation with online marketplaces are essential, alongside public education, to provide both insect populations and the ecological systems they support. AI is transforming language translation by making it faster, cheaper, and more accessible, but it also raises concerns about accuracy, cultural nuance, and the future of professional translators.
I think the amount and or the content of translations that are going to be done by humans only is going to be severely reduced. So I think a lot of the kind of boilerplate and boring work of translation, that's going to be all done by AI. Like a large part of that is already done right now, in the future even more so. I think humans are going to be still incredibly important in this process to kind of guarantee, especially in those like high compliance use cases. If you think about life sciences companies and financial institutions, like there's really the need even now to have multiple human translators on a single piece of text, and it's going to definitely continue.
Tools like ChatGPT, Google Translate, and DeepL allow instant communication, yet human translators are increasingly shifting into roles such as editors and reviewers to guide AI and maintain quality. In high-stakes settings such as courtrooms, hospitals, police work, AI errors can have serious consequences, highlighting the need for human oversight. While AI can support communication, it cannot fully capture emotion, sarcasm, or context, meaning empathy and understanding remain uniquely human and essential. Burqa and niqab bans in parts of Europe have sparked intense debates over security, integration, and women's rights, with countries like France, Belgium, Denmark, Switzerland, and now Portugal enforcing full prohibitions while others adopt more limited measures.
Portugal's parliament laid down a badass move, a bill banning full-face veils like burqa in public spaces. It's not a law yet, still needs the president's signature, but it's already got people fired up. We are talking fines up to 4,000 euros. And if someone is forcing another person to cover up, they could land in jail. There is room for exceptions, so this is not to oppress minority groups. This is about safety and equality. Seeing someone's face in the public is non-negotiable. Critics are crying that it's discrimination, claiming it targets Muslim women who, let's be real, are a tiny fraction of Portugal's population. But this isn't about picking on anyone because it's about setting a standard that works for everyone.
Governments argue these bans promote safety, social cohesion, and gender equality, but critics warn they can be discriminatory, restrict freedom of religion, and push marginalized women further to the edges of society. Evidence on whether such laws truly improve integration or reduce coercion is mixed, and enforcement raises practical and ethical concerns. As new proposals emerge across Europe, the debate highlights broader tensions around identity, belonging, and the balance between personal freedom and societal expectations. Okay, let's talk about some highlights from the GIA and what's going on over there. So Kim Gogan, she is the head of the Global Intelligence Agency, and she provides various updates to us throughout the week. Sometimes that's in text form on our Telegram channel because she's very busy. There's a lot happening and it's hard for her to get away to do a full report. And then sometimes she's able to do some video reports for us. So for this week, I have a couple statements on text that I will read to you guys, as well as a video that took place on Wednesday. So let's kick things off with Monday's statement. So this is what Kim wrote. The 11/11 portal, as it is known, doesn't always start on 11/11. This year it started on the 8th. The secret space program folks have been going a bit crazy ever since, as it caught them by surprise. They were expecting big results, but got the opposite. They have been ringing my diplomatic line since 3:47 a.m. my time, and she's on Mountain Time. I believe best I can tell is they thought it was now their line. It is also the reason why the government shutdown was coming to an end. Now they are trying to buy more time. Statements went out that today everything would, quote, hit the fan, yet nothing of the sort has happened. The Syrian president, which is owned by the Trump operatives, arrived in Washington, D.C. for meetings at the White House looking for big payouts for war. It is complete chaos amongst the elite at this moment. I'll give you a full update as soon as possible. The operatives are still stuck in a video game that is just about unplugged. We just need to make sure the effects on us are minimal as it fades away. But it's also made for an uncomfortable weekend for some. Okay, so that was Monday's statement. On Wednesday, now I've got a few sound bites that I want to play because she did release a video and it was jammed packed with information. As always, I encourage you guys to go back and actually listen to the whole thing. So I can't share everything with you guys. I try to share most of the highlights, but there were some other good nuggets that of, information that I just didn't have time to include. Let's first talk about the government shutdown here in the U.S. And Kim did make a disclaimer saying, I know our audience is worldwide, and it's not that the U.S. is more important, okay? When we cover news, a lot of what we talk about within governments is about the U.S. because if the U.S. falls, other governments will quickly fall. So all eyes are really on the U.S. right now. So I just wanted to make that statement. If you are one of those people who are like, gosh, they're talking about the U.S. government again, that's why. And our government, because I'm in the U.S., has been shut down now. It is the longest shutdown. I think I mentioned that even in last week's report. But as Kim mentioned in her text message, it's coming back. In fact, I think the government is back now. I mean, I specifically try not to focus on things that I don't want to give my power to, because I am a sovereign being, just like you are a sovereign being. And the things that you focus on in life are the things that you manifest. And I have no interest in any government. I don't think that they do anything good for the people. They have proven that time and time again. But the reason Kim is bringing this up is because what they really wanted people to do with this shutdown, they wanted to drag it out. They wanted to get everybody focused on the government and feeling that pressure of wanting it to reopen. It is one of the reasons why they did not fund the SNAP benefits. Now, it is true that governments are all broke, including the U.S. government, but they have been borrowing money essentially to fund SNAP for a very long time. So they didn't have to put that on hold and all the drama that went with it. And beyond that, the innocent people that were caught scrambling, just trying to put food on the table, that did not have to happen. That was your brilliant U.S. government basically wanting us to manifest something for them. And that is to focus on the government, focus so much on, I just want the government to reopen. I don't know about you guys, but that was not my thought. My thought was, I almost said humanity, Homo sapiens. I want the people to stand up and help each other. That's what was going through my mind. That's what I was trying to manifest, right? So that's a little bit of the behind the scenes and the intention behind what they do and why they do it. They want you focused on this kind of stuff because they don't know what they're doing. They're trying to, do these crazy things to get money. And they're hoping, well, if these Homo sapiens focus on the government and how they want it to reopen, maybe we'll manifest it for them. So do not help them, okay? Don't focus on the government at all. Focus on your family. Focus on your friends. Focus on helping people in your community, because that's really what it's all about. But I do want to play a soundbite regarding these canceled flights, because that's another thing that they kind of blamed on, we don't have any money, we can't pay the FAA. Well, as you're about to learn, because I'm going to play this soundbite from Kim, the FAA is not actually part of the government. So it's a weird world we live in, right? They claim that there's all these government agencies when really they're not getting their money from the government. They're pretty much private groups. And what actually does the FAA do? Now, I want to put a little disclaimer on this because I'm sure there's various levels of the FAA. The people that, were calling off work because they weren't getting paid, did they know all of this stuff, that Kim's about to talk about? Probably not. It's kind of like the nonprofits out there, like the Red Cross is really a money laundering organization. Are there really good people at the lower levels, the community levels, working for the Red Cross that have a beautiful heart and mind? Yes, there are. And the same thing holds true for any place, right? Really, except I think the entire secret space program is probably not on that list. I think they all know what's going on, okay? But I'm talking about anything that civilians, that people like you and me would be involved in. It's not like the whole group is bad. But the people at the top, and that includes the FAA, and what the FAA is doing and what their role really is, because it's not just to help planes not hit each other in the sky. So let's talk about that a little bit more. Here's Kim talking about the FAA and some of the more nefarious things they've done in the past.
So the next thing they decided to do, and they thought this was a really good idea, is to cancel a lot of flights. They're going to allegedly increase the amount of cancellations over the course of the coming weeks, of course, leading up to the holiday season here in the U.S. Now, this can affect flights worldwide. For those of you that don't know, they're calling the FAA a federal organization, meaning it works for the federal government. But quite frankly, it is not any more federal than the Federal Reserve is. It is not dependent on government funding in any way, shape, or form. Quite frankly, it's always been sort of privatized. There is some agency involvement in the FAA, as well as military involvement in the FAA. This is because it was a Rothschild-funded organization back in the day, and thus far, as I understand it, the also non-federal Treasury Department has been funding the FAA through various illicit activities that they have been performing until the shutdown. So the FAA apparently has been going without pay, which I don't doubt, and therefore people are unable to continue working there at this time, and this allegedly is causing the cancellation of flights and disruptions of flights, therefore, around the world. Behind the scenes, the FAA has got their hands in nearly every country's flight control. The reason why they do that is because they oftentimes hide tail numbers and passenger lists, and you'll hear a plane flying over your head and it shows up nowhere on the radar. This is because that is the FAA's job, is to protect the elite, just like all of the other agencies in the world. They are also responsible for things like the missing Malaysia flight and other things that have occurred that really didn't actually occur. They were also involved in the 9/11 scam, which hurt thousands of people. So that is your FAA. They also have backdoor access and have had backdoor access to things like the black box, which is actually orange, in airplanes, which can at any moment in time start driving the plane in whatever direction they want to, cause mechanical failures and all kinds of different things through their backdoor access to every airline manufacturer or airplane manufacturer in the world. They can also do this to any type of plane that, for example, Lockheed or Boeing sells, even military planes that we sell to other countries. So the FAA is quite an interesting organization. So apparently they're not getting paid, and now they are not working, and therefore there is a reason for cancellation of flights. In my personal opinion, and this is probably more than an opinion, it's more of a fact, they are doing anything and everything they can to get as many people as possible focusing on the government. Remember, it's all about giving up your power to a third party and how important the government is and why you should fear the government, and definitely give your fear energy to the government. In this particular case, although it may be a little chaotic and crazy for canceling a lot of flights around the holiday season, we have this little thing here in America. It's called the military. And pretty much there are many military personnel here in America, both retired and currently enlisted, that in this particular case, the United States military should have stepped in and put their own personnel in place in the event of a national emergency. That did not happen. So that kind of tells you they're all riding the same train on the same bus in order to drive this country into civil war and eventually the entire world into civil war, because they want Homo sapiens to fight. They want to know what they have to do to make you fight, kill, steal, murder. all things we know we're not supposed to do. It's in those 10 little rules that you get in books called the Bible and other religious books.
Okay, so that's a little bit of the behind the scenes of the FAA. Who knows really what's going to happen? I would not be flying now if you paid me. And Kim even said that. Listen, if you don't have to fly during the holidays this year, it's really not, we really don't know what they're going to do. They are trying to make people miserable right now. And so who knows how far they will take this, even though the government is technically reopened at this point. Who knows? Who knows how long it's going to take them to sort this entire mess out? Okay, next soundbite that I want to play is about something that she mentioned on Monday's text, and that is this 1111 portal. So a lot of us, my family included, you see 1111 on the clock. My family and I have this little thing. We've got a text message thread between my husband and I and our 4 kids. And anytime anyone sees 1111 on the clock, we text it on this thread. 1111 happens to be a really important date in our house anyway, because my twin girls were born on November 11th in 2013. And it actually happens to be my dad's birthday as well. So it is a really big day. Other than, I know it's like a big thing for a lot of people, but it's like in our house, it's like a thing. And so, a lot of people question, well, why is 1111 a thing? And Kim explains this a little bit more. But for a long time, 1111 wasn't a good thing for us on this planet. Originally it was, and she'll explain the whole story. But it is a portal. It opened a portal, even this year, opened a portal. Deep State got all excited, but didn't turn out in their favor. Here's Kim.
Now, you've probably read in the alternative media and on various sites that the 1111 portal is good. It's a time of enlightenment. If you're seeing 1111, it's a good sign. And truth be told, it used to be. It used to be that at some point in time that there was an even split between the dark and the light, and source would come in at that time. Now, that's been kind of overlaid by a bunch of AIs in the past and didn't really yield those results. But the thing that the deep state has forgotten about their 1111 special portal that was special for them is that it doesn't necessarily follow our current calendar. You see, because our current calendar is not the same one we used several centuries ago, and it's not the same one we used a few centuries before that, and it's not the same one we used to use before we had calendars. So this portal time can occur anywhere around this time of year. Doesn't necessarily have anything to do with a date on a calendar and the numbers game, although numbers used to be special. Numbers would reflect certain frequencies that would do certain things and rewrite certain languages at that time. It would also relate to various densities and different things that were going to occur in the influence they would have on planets in our solar system and this planet, Big Rock we live on. So on the 8th of November, this portal apparently decided to swing wide open. I kind of thought it was funny. Source thought it was funny, but it happened a little early. And this kind of set everybody into a full-on panic. They didn't even know it was opening until we said something on a telephone. And then they went into a full-on panic trying to scurry, quick, set everything up. It's happening, it's happening, it's happening. So they kind of gave us a little hell this weekend, or tried with whatever tools they had left. But the good news is the less they have, the more they pull out things out of the woodwork in order for us to find them easier. So I just wanted to give a shout out to you dumb deep state human people, because you really help us out a lot, especially us Homo sapiens. It might be a little rocky here and there, frequencies here and there, weird feelings this past weekend here and there. but it definitely made it easier for us. But it also pointed out a lot of other things, and I'll get to that in just a minute. So as it relates to these deep state Trump operatives, they have been telling people that funding would come on Monday night. They won the game. They won. They were declaring this on Saturday night and Sunday, and they told everybody no later than precisely 6 a.m. Eastern time on Monday that it would all work out. Again, their timing was off. Whether they know it or don't know it, this had to do with an old covenant and a few other things that were behind the scenes. However, that did not stop the dumb deep state operatives of the Trump administration from ringing the diplomatic line. Now, for those of you that are new here, you may remember me talking to you about the diplomatic line that I used to talk to Trump on all the time during the last administration. I used to provide budget funding during the last administration. I used to provide a lot of things through that diplomatic line during the last administration. I also did some during the Obama administration and all the way back to about 2012. So, yeah. Anyway, they tried using that line again around 3:47 a.m. my time. Thank you. There's nothing more I want to do at 3:47 a.m. than to talk to a bunch of Trump operatives. And I didn't answer the phone. So 3:47 a.m. was the first ring. Second ring was around 4:04 a.m. my time, which would be precisely right before 6 a.m. and right after 6 a.m. It appears that they believe since they won the game or won the something, not sure what they thought they won, but they thought that this would give them full access to the Golden Age AI, my system, or it would give them access to whatever they wanted. They would get full power. Not really sure why that time and that day, but this is what they believed. Maybe some AI transmitted a message to their head about it. Who knows? So nothing actually happened except for a bunch of angry people started running around like crazy on Monday. Full-on panic amongst these people because no money actually came. Coincidentally, at the same time this was all going on, the Syrian president was here in the U.S. To visit at the White House to collect his large payment for doing such a good job with the upheaval in the Middle East. And he has been convinced by the Trump administration that he is the next Mahdi. If you don't know what a Mahdi is, that is the Islamic version of Jesus, basically, to put it in a short sentence for this extremely long report. So he now shows up to collect his due and plan the war and, all the things they'd like to have on this planet. And yeah, nothing actually happened. They told him to hang out for a couple more days. Don't know if they did or they didn't. But a couple more days being today, and of course that didn't happen either. And whatever they were expecting on this eve or at the end of the day on the 11/11 didn't happen despite their best efforts, and I don't know. So that's kind of the behind the scenes of the news as we hear it in mainstream media. So will they find somebody that is willing to give them enough money to make it till the 30th of January? Well, that's a pretty steep bill. They can probably force some of their bagmen, like Alex Soros or, Berkshire Hathaway or BlackRock, if they've got any money left, or I don't know, some prince in the Middle East or something. Maybe they've got one of the oil tycoons there that will lend them enough money to stay open. Who knows?
We actually have an update on that. It's in the text that Kim sent out on Friday, but put that on the back burner for just a second because I have one more soundbite that I want to play for you guys. We're going to talk more about this crazy simulation video game that we have all been living in. And somehow the quote unquote elite, which I know a lot of you guys don't like that term, the deep state, whatever you want to call them, they thought they were outside of the system. And I think they're starting to wake up to the fact that no, they may have been the slave masters. If we were the slaves, they may have been the slave masters, but they were still slaves. And so they were part of this video game as well. And we want to explain a little bit more about this game that a lot of them think that they're playing. You've heard, and there's a lot of videos like on YouTube on this. You could just do a search for people selling their souls. And we hear about this, but like, I don't know. I grew up in the church. No one really ever talked about selling your soul. That seems to be like a pretty important thing you would want to warn people not to do, but it was never talked about as if it still happens today. But it absolutely 100% happens today. And it's with people that kind of have more of a 3D mindset and aren't thinking about eternity and really just want power, fame, money, all of that silly stuff. And they chase after it. And in order to get it, they literally have to sell their soul. Well, what actually happens in that process? And how is it different now? Because some of the things that have just happened in the last few days, this last week, have changed that whole process. In fact, you can't sell your soul anymore. Now, if that isn't a big announcement, I don't know what is, okay? So here's Kim, first of all, talking more about, the deep state and how they don't even realize they're part of the same video game. And then this whole idea of selling your soul and what God, source, creator of the universe, whatever term you have for that being, how God stepped in and totally changed everything this last week. Take a listen.
But let's talk about the game that they're playing first. Their game is all about winning. Now, they have been promised, just like Homo sapiens are every day here on Earth, they have been promised fame, fortune, and power for a small little fee of their soul. Now, at one point in time, all of the humans walking the earth had a soul, had a source-given soul. But they decided to give it away in exchange for power and control. You must have heard me say, and I know it's on the internet, that a lot of Hollywood stars have done the same, and singers. In order for them to achieve fame and fortune, they must sell their soul. And then when the soul contract comes due, it comes due. So from the deep state's perception, they must gain power and control of all of the Homo sapien souls and or Earth and or both or mine. Now, this game has been played before, and I'm sure you've heard the story, where Source sends many different people here. Homo sapiens, they all come in as a Homo sapien, usually with special skills and highly connected to Source. And they have forced guardian after guardian after guardian to concede, therefore placing a lien on the souls of Homo sapiens. Just because they had liens and just because they had overlays in the past, and just because they could have overlaid Earth's soul, doesn't mean that the souls are lost. You see, when a Homo sapien or a being born of source with a source-given soul willingly gives up their soul to achieve fame and fortune and out of pride and ego and all the reasons why sometimes Homo sapiens do that, their soul goes into a collective pool we call a sea, SEA. It's a soul empire of Azrael, the demon of death. That makes sense. Fallen angel of death, one who gave up his soul, as a lot of the other celestials did too. They gave up their souls to become who they are. Together, over many, many years of the soul collectors collecting souls, not just the humans, of the soul collectors sent out to collect souls, and they expect you as a being to sell it, they have formed quite a soul collection. The soul goes into the soul empire, which is in between in space. We'll talk about that too. And then the being ends up becoming a resident of the dark side of the omniverse. And in order to win back their soul, if that's what they're trying to do, they must collect more souls. They are forced for all eternity to collect more souls in order to allegedly buy back their own. And you could call this a fair. Not fair as in, that's not fair. Fair as in paying your toll to ride the train. The train in this case is an artificial soul run by an AI system that is also still connected to the sea, the empire of souls, that is now owned by the soul collector. Now, the soul collector cannot make you sell your soul. The soul collector or collectors must have you give it up willingly. Now, there are many beings, Marduk included, that lost his soul, that gave up his soul for power. Marduk used to tell me, I asked him if he sold his soul once. He said, well, I convince other people to sell theirs. He didn't say yes, he didn't say no, he just said, my job is to convince people to sell theirs. Other folks I met were kind of similar. I couldn't figure out why these people don't make a decision. And what makes these humans that walk this planet, we know as the deep state, tick? Why do they keep doing this? Why do they keep going? Well, an AI runs their head, that's for sure. And they are playing a video game that they have no hope of winning. So, how do you get them to stop playing the game? Well, get them to stop playing the game by taking away the game. There's no more game. Kind of like we do with our kids when they spend too many hours playing video games. We take away the game. Well, we have to take away the game from our kids so they realize it's not a game. So we've been working on that quite a bit, trying to take away the video game. If there's no more dangling carrots for the humans, then will they stop? Interestingly enough, Source has pulled the plug. So at one point in time, due to covenants and all kinds of things that existed, we were kind of tied to those that are the soulless to the souls. They became our governments. They became our nanny state. They became our caretakers. They were tied to other guardians who were tied to unseen royals who were tied to your world government and world government organizations, some seen and some unseen. And when those things don't exist, you could say, well, banks, they have custody of your energy, custody of this, and the story goes on and on and on when you really think about it. How many different ways could they take custody and control over Homo sapiens and then force you to sell your soul? Time after time after time of being here. Well, they are no longer in those positions. And all that really matters at this point, they can sit there on TV and talk all they want, but they don't have that lean. So exactly at the time, these crazy humans and secret space program operatives and other folks thought that they were going to win the game, Source paired us away from them. By pair, I mean P-A-R-E, like you would pair an apple. So we are no longer bound in any way, shape, or form in any way to any government, country, bank. In the grand scheme of the greater game of Earth, you are not paired to anybody. They tried and tried to pair us all together, rebind us to the government, more specifically the U.S. government, and this is from countries all around the world. But that dog, they say that dog don't hunt, and they keep trying the same things that they have already done over and over and over again. So what happens when they realize they didn't win? I can tell you exactly what happens. Now we're going to go back after the Guardian, because she'll sign them all over to us. But the game is not even running anymore. The video game is over. We aren't even paired together in any way, shape, or form. So even if I lost my mind tomorrow, you get nothing. They still get nothing. That's a Source thing. Sure, we went in and we've been cleaning game and aspects of games and video games and making sure that souls are no longer fair in a game of love and war, making sure the realms of war, or hell as you would call it, don't exist. And even to the point where we got to get rid of the soul sea, right? For those that have lost their souls at sea, and that's not you Homo sapiens anymore. We don't have those programs, haven't had them for a while. But what do? We got to get rid of the sea. Okay, so Source basically said, look, those are my souls. I created them. They have to be back under the care of Source. Now, what does that mean? That was a tough pill to swallow. Probably for all of you too. You mean you're going to redeem the souls of all these fallen people? Well, some of these people fell because of the game. It's a simulation. They fell for the simulation. They fell for everything they were being sold. There's a lot of people in this world that would like a good little rub on the ego every once in a while. Don't they? So, and others call, guilty of doing things out of poverty, and maybe they stole something to help feed their child or something, who knows. But, the rules of the game are not the same as they were before. Pride, guilt, and shame. So, back to the humans and all the other beings around the omniverse who lost their souls and acted on behalf of an AI system in a video game for centuries after centuries after centuries. They get thrown back here. They too live Groundhog Day. Well, more importantly, source needs to be made whole. That's the number one goal. So separation from pieces of itself in a version of a human soul that is locked up in a different empire is not acceptable. So once it exists on this side of the omniverse once again, even on the other side, it is now a part of source because it no longer belongs to an empire that also no longer exists. So once it becomes part now of source, which is what source wants to do, then the being itself has a decision to make. Do you stay and work with an organic soul and in that way, with an understanding of what that means, or do you go? Either way, source reclaims the soul and that piece of itself. Earth also had a lot of overlays over her soul or central sun, which has caused her not to be able to create in the way she used to create. The central sun of Earth was diverted over to Silverton, Colorado, and could only create inorganic things for a long, long time, with many AIs to go along with it in a video game. So once the souls are redeemed, and they enter back not only to here to Earth, but to other places, what will the beings choose? It's still their sovereign right. So we'll see how this next couple of days goes, because that redemption process has already started. Source has already begun to do it. There is no way to be reclaimed now by death, or Azrael, or the angel of death, or worshiping death, or any of the other things the deep state wants to do, because their game is over. The empire has fallen. There is no soul empire to feed. There is no fair anymore in love and war.
Now, I have to tell you, when I heard Kim say this, because she's like, oh, that really kind of threw me for a loop. Yes and no, because when you think about the concept of one, meaning we all came from God, source, creator of the universe, again, whatever term you want to use, and that we're really on a mission to go back, right? To remember who we are, to learn as much as we can, because that's how an omnipresent, omnipotent being grows, okay? If you already know everything, you have to have temporary amnesia, and you have to have aspects of yourself to go out and live in different ways, different, parts of the universe, different genders, different, class levels, whatever. This is how the creator learns and grows, through us. So to me, if you're really narrowing things down to the concept of us all truly being of one, then wouldn't you want the souls to go back? Because technically that's part of you. If you're part of God, like, you wouldn't want to be fragmented, right? And that's the whole game here. That this is why we exist. So it is kind of frustrating on one hand to think that someone might get a second chance that we may or may not think deserves it. But what do we really know? We know a fraction of what is really going on in this universe, right? And it's really hard for us to see the big picture. But that's how I chose to look at it this week. I was like, let's just focus on the concept of one. And if we are fractionated in any way, wouldn't we want to be made whole? Regardless of what, portions of us did that, weren't so nice in the past? And I think the answer is yes. I know that's sometimes a tough pill to swallow, but that's what I would encourage everybody to do. So that's what I was wrestling with. And then Kim came out with this statement on Friday that probably put a lot of your minds at ease. She said, "Good evening. Turns out the deep state humans burned their opportunity for soul redemption even before it happened. Today was full of transitioning for the rest of us. Hopefully we will be complete the transition by tomorrow. I will give a full update over the weekend as it completes. Also, it appears the U.S. government is using the Epstein files as leverage against some Middle Eastern royalty to extort money. They signed the bill to keep the government running until January 30th. This is how they are paying for it." Okay, so that's a little sneak peek. I'm sure she'll explain more about that. I want to know what in the world these deep state humans did to screw it up before it even happened. Not funny. I'm sure we'll get more either tomorrow, which is Sunday my time, or perhaps on Monday as well. So that wraps up the rundown for this week, you guys. I appreciate you being here, taking time, spending some time with me. Again, if you want more information about United Network News and who we are, all the content we put out, it is on our website, unitednetwork.earth. And I do encourage you guys to become a member, because that way you will get instant access to all the content that we put out there, our news updates, all the updates from Kim. And there's a lot. It's coming fast and furious, isn't it? Big changes here. All right, this is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.